Coming to you direct from Silencer Shop Studios, home of the Glass Case of Emotion.
SilencerShop.com, the easiest way to buy silencers online, period.
Stand by for education, enlightenment, enjoyment, and entertainment.
He's not here to talk about your feelings. He's not here to say what you want to hear. He's here to say what needs to be said.
Ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages, please welcome your host, the pimp hand of America, Professor Paul Markel.
Hello and good morning, good afternoon, whenever it is you happen to be listening to Student of the Gun. And, you know, if you're listening to us on Australia, it might be afternoon or evening. Australia, New Zealand. You know what, Jared? Zach is really super curious to know if people in New Zealand listen to us. Zach wants to visit New Zealand. And we were talking about somebody chimed in on the Morning Mindset the other day on Friday and said that they were listening to us from Brisbane, Australia.
Oh, pretty cool.
And Zach said, well, how about New Zealand?
Okay, New Orleans.
Almost, yeah, New Orleans. New Zealand. Are people listening there? I don't know, Zach. Maybe. I know that we've been downloaded in 154 countries, so I'm assuming that that's one of them. But I am your host, Professor Paul Markel. I am inside of the Glass Case of Emotion, of course. The reason that we're able to do this, we wouldn't be able to do what we do without our good friends, and we'll acknowledge some of them later. Jared is back from the road. And we're not going to talk about his vacation today. And it was seamless for you kids, wasn't it? Yeah, you're welcome, freaks. So
I put a lot of time in prep there.
Yeah, what you freaks don't know is that Jared's actually been gone for, what, was it 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah, 14 days. But we recorded all the shows and did all the show notes and all the everything in a period of about, 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are some long days.
Some long days.
Yeah, I didn't even want to talk. Like, after you left, I just sat on the couch and didn't say anything.
Didn't do anything.
No, I didn't say anything. But we are back, and I don't know if I'm still, in practice with this, but I'm going to try. And thank you for joining me for this ride. I truly appreciate it. This last weekend was a sad weekend, and for the entire nation and for me personally, because a good friend of mine, a mentor, I guess you could say, he was my rabbi in the gun world, in the firearms gun writer community. Walter Rausch has passed away. And if you're long in the tooth like me, if you're in your 40s and 40s, 50s, maybe older, if you were reading gun magazines in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, especially Harris magazines. I think Walt wrote for Handguns magazine. He wrote for Police and Security News. He wrote for Guns and Weapons for Law Enforcement, Combat Handguns. He wrote a couple of different books. He might have written for SWAT magazine. I'm not sure his entire professional writing career, but I met Walt via a telephone call about 21, 22 years ago, I guess it was. I was a brand new gun writer. I'd had 3 or 4 assignments, and I might have had, maybe I had 5 or 6 articles under my belt. And, Walt was one of the guys who'd been writing for a long time, and I'd been reading his stuff for years and years. And I got the courage to call him, and he's like, oh, he asked me some questions, and very direct, to the point questions like, well, what did you do in the military? And I told him. He said, okay, where were you stationed? Okay. He asked me about my time as a police officer, and he's like, okay. And he said, all right. He goes, you check out. What do you want to talk about? And he became my rabbi, my mentor from that point forward. Every once in a while I would have a quandary or question, or I was trying to, find my way in the world, or at least in that part of the world. And I'd, send him an email or give him a call or whatever. And I remember calling him one time because somebody had kind of was an a-hole to me on the phone, a firearms industry manufacturer kind of a person. And I called Walt, and he said, F that guy. And I was like, but he didn't say F that guy, but this is family friendly. And I'm not going to make Jared bleep it out. But and he laid it to me straight. He said, Paul, he said, what were you planning on doing? I said, well, I was going to do this story, and I was going to include this guy's product. He goes, we're going to take photos of it? Yeah. He said, all right, this is the real world. He said, you write a feature article, it ends up in Combat Handguns or whatever magazine, and the manufacturer gets 2 or 3 pictures in there, and you talk about it, and you talk about your experience in using it. He said, yeah. He said, Paul, that's worth, and this is, back in the 90s when he was talking. He goes, that's worth $5,000 to $10,000 in advertising. He goes, in order to get that, to buy that, it would cost him $5,000 to $10,000. He goes, and they don't buy it because they can't buy it. They can't buy your recommendation. They can't buy your review. They can't buy your experience. He said, because what happened was I called this manufacturer, and my editor, Harry King, way back when, had told me, he's like, look, if you're going to write an article and you have a gun A, and you need a holster for gun A, he goes, before you go out and get a holster from your buddy, the custom holster maker or whatever, he said, we like to give preferential treatment to people who sponsor the magazine. He said, so if you're looking, if it doesn't, most of the time, here's the deal, folks. If you're going to, way back when you're going to write an article about a handgun, right? If it was a duty gun, a concealed carry gun, whatever, you had to have certain things. You had to have the gun, okay? You had to have at least one holster to go with the gun. Then you had to have ammunition to shoot out of the gun. And then maybe you'd throw in a couple, little accoutrement, like a flashlight or a pocket knife or whatever, right? You kind of round the whole thing out. And so I had contacted somebody, and I told them what I was doing, and I knew that they advertised with Harris, and he said to me, he goes, you effing gun writers always have your hand out looking for something free. And I was kind of taken back because, I'd only been doing it a few years, and I was like, wow, I'm sorry, and maybe I overstepped my bounds, and I called Walt. And he goes, F that guy. And so I said, yeah, F that guy.
It's like, it's not really free. Like, I'm going to take that and I'm going to put my time into it.
Well,
and time is worth more than anything else in the world. So,
and I know today you guys are like, whoa, hang on, Paul, because there's all these YouTubers and people with their own blogs and blah. Like, dude, stop. This wasn't YouTube blog stuff. I was a vetted writer for an actual publication, right? This wasn't like I just set up a blog in my mom's basement and I was calling people in the gun industry saying, send me ammo, send me this, send me that, And the thing is, back in the 80s and 90s, there were maybe 6 to 8 publishers that were doing firearms-related magazines. Really only about 4 or 5 that were big, right? You had Harris, which was really big. You had the whoever the hell owned Guns and Ammo at the time. Guns and Ammo's changed hands like 3 or 4 or 5 times in the last 20 years. You had SWAT magazine, and then all the way out on the West Coast, you had American Handgunner and so forth. So really, legitimately, if let's say I'm a firearms industry person, I make stuff, and some guy calls me and he's like, "Hey, my name's Bob, and I'm writing an article for Guns and Sandwiches magazine." And you say, "Okay, Bob, cool," and I'll get right back with you. Or I'll talk to you tomorrow. And you hang up the phone, and there were literally 5, maybe 6 people, if you're a gun maker, that you could call. And you're like, how are they supposed to know? They know. It's a small industry. If I said I'm writing for Guns and Sandwiches, you could pick up your phone, call the editor of Guns and Sandwiches, and say, "Hey, do you know this guy? Is he for real? Is he working on an assignment for you?" And he would tell him either yes or no. Denny Hansen, editor of SWAT magazine for like 20 plus years. Denny told me years and years and years ago, he said, yeah, every once in a while, he goes, maybe once a month, every 6 weeks or so, I'll get a phone call and they'll say, "Hey, do you know this guy?" And he'll say, "Nope, never heard of him." And I'll say, "Okay, good enough for me. I'm not sending him anything." Because unfortunately, what was happening especially in the 90s, going into the 2000s, is people would say, "I want to be a gun writer. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call up these gun companies, have them send me stuff. I'll write an article, and then once it's written, I'll send it around to a bunch of gun magazines and see if anyone's interested in it. So anyway, long story short, I'm going to miss my friend Walt. Walt Roush was in the Army. He was in the United States Army. He was a Secret Service agent. I think Walt actually worked on the Johnson. He was in ministry. Yeah. He was in the Secret Service when Lyndon Johnson was president. So that's how long Walt's been around. He was a private investigator. He was a gun writer. He was a shooter. He worked a lot with the Glock Shooting Sports Foundation. Walt Roush was one of the founding members of IDPA. Jared, you realize there's only 3 left?
Yep.
Bill Wilson, Ken Hackathorn, and Larry Vickers, of the 5 original IDPA guys, are the only ones that are still with us.
Yeah.
So, goodbye, my friend Walt. Your rest is well deserved, and fair winds and following seas. All right, it is Monday, so I'm going to talk about a motivational moment for troops overseas and all troops. If you're listening to me and you're in the United States military right now, here's what I'm going to tell you. Train harder than you have to. Now, this is easy for Marines because they don't have to train. I don't need to tell them that, because they keep Marines hungry and tired and uncomfortable all the time on purpose, at least infantry Marines. But I'm telling you this. Right now, you're being shortchanged if you're in the conventional Army, the conventional Navy, the conventional Air Force, Air National Guard, Coast Guard, whatever. You are being shortchanged by the Department of Defense. You're like, Paul, sacrilege. I know this is a fact because I'm involved in this. I've been involved in training. And sadly, they spend more time worrying about EEOC and gender sensitivity training. And what did your friend go to after he graduated from
gender sensitivity?
Yeah, a week of gender sensitivity training.
No. I think it was just sensitivity.
It was a sensitivity training, and
it wasn't gender specific.
Yeah,
you can't say that.
Seek out training. Train harder than you have to. Don't satisfy yourself being a C+ student. Try to be a B or an A student. Listen to me, brothers. If you're in the United States Marine Corps right now and you're in the conventional forces, I want you to try and get, I don't know that they still have stay platoons or not. Try and do the Recon Indoc. Try and do MARSOC. Try and do something more than you're doing right now. And maybe you're comfortable. I don't know. But you won't regret it. If you were in the conventional U.S. Army right now, try for something special. Try for something different. Try for something unique. Or don't. You're an American. You can just sit around and be a C student if that's what you want. Unfortunately, our nation is filled with C students, and people tell the C students that that's all they should try and do. I'm telling you, you're better than that. I'm telling you, you deserve more than what you're getting right now. And you're going to have to seek it out. You're going to have to work hard to train harder, but you won't regret it. All right, it's Monday, and what does that mean? Well, Monday means we have a SWAT Fuel Warrior of the Week, and I'm very looking forward to. I'm looking very forward-looking. I am, says Yoda, to answering this question.
I had a quick question about reflex sights on a carry gun, like the Trijicon RMR, Delta or Loophole Delta Point. I wanted to get your opinion on those. Do you think it's worth the investment, and are there any particular disadvantages? Thanks for what you do. Keep up the great work. Bye.
All right. Well, nameless person, I hope that you recognize your voice, and that was the whole message. That was the whole message. We didn't cut any of it out. We didn't edit it. Person, contact. Who do they need to contact, Jared?
Contacts Alex at Student of the Gun, ALEX at studentofthegun.com. And so it sounded like he got cut. Like he started talking before the answering machine actually picked up.
He was super excited.
Yeah.
But it's a good question. But when you do contact Alex at Student of the Gun, name, address, and include your email address in the body of it so that we can forward it directly to SWAT Fuel, and you can get your 9mm plus P.
And your phone number as well. Name,
and your
mailing address, phone number, and email.
That's for the shipping thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to put that in there. Okay. Reflex sights, mini red dot sights on pistols. Now, they've been doing that. They've been putting red dot optics on competition guns for a long, long time. All the super, $2,000 and $3,000 Ninja race guns with the funky, crazy Star Wars rigs and stuff like that. That's been going on for a long time. But the new hotness, and this is actually something that my good friend Dave Biggers has been working on behind the scenes for like 5 years or so, is putting mini red dots on guns, and it looks like it's here to stay. It's kind of taken the manufacturers a little bit of time to get on board with it, but it looks like they're there now. They figured it out. Now, is it practical for self-defense, personal defense shooting? Absolutely it is, and I'm going to tell you why. Number one, we know that red dots are good for fighting. How do you know that, Paul? Well, because almost every single soldier, Marine, Special Forces operator, what have you, that goes overseas and has been, spreading the good news for the last 10 years or so, has been using either they use EOTechs, they use aim points, and I know a Trijicon is a magnified optic. You don't need to tell me that, or varieties thereof. And they've been spreading the good news and sending the little goat rapists to meet Allah very effectively with red dot optics. And they work. They work in combat. They're tough. The technology is there. Now, the question is, do you want to put those on pistols? And the answer is, yes, you do. Now, what is the drawback? Some people will tell you, anything with glass, I'm not putting it on my fighting gun. Bros, an aim point T1 micro T1, however you want to pronounce it, is as tough or tougher than your gun. You put that, a Comp M4 is as tough or tougher than your gun. You could take your gun and throw it off the back of a Humvee and watch it bounce down the road, and more damage was done to the rifle than was done to your optic. Trijicon, a real Trijicon, not the ones that are, not the $299 Trijicons that you think you're going to buy at a gun show. No. The actual real ones, yeah. You could probably drop those from the Empire State Building, or you could drop them pretty far. I had somebody say, who was it, Jared? We were talking about that a few months ago. We were talking with Zach Hall, and a guy's like, when I was overseas, I had a Trijicon on my rifle, and it broke. And Zach's like, how did it break? He goes, well, the armored hatch on the Bradley closed on it, and it smashed it. I'm like, so what you're telling me is that the armored hatch on the Bradley closed on your rifle and broke the optic, and so therefore it's not trustworthy. Okay. So if you don't plan on closing an armored hatch of a Bradley fighting vehicle on your pistol or rifle, you should be doing all right.
Yeah, then you're good to go.
Yeah, you should be good to go. What does the red dot give you the opportunity to do? It gives you the opportunity to put the red dot on the threat, on the target, on the thing that you want to shoot. Why do you think, cats and kittens out there, that all these ninja race gun, these race car drivers, these race gun drivers for the last 20 plus years or more have been putting red dots on their race guns so that they could look through it, put the red dot on the steel target or whatever it is they're shooting at, and shoot it really fast. Yeah, it's almost like cheating, right? Well, when you're dealing with a human attacker, a monster who wants to kill you, the natural reaction of the human being in a panic situation, you want to look at the threat. Your body wants to do that. Your mind is telling you there's something that's trying to kill you. You should look at it. But when you're using conventional sights, what happens is you say, but I know that if I don't find my front sight and put the front sight on there, that I'm not going to hit it. And if I don't line the sight, if you have like your traditional sights, your traditional iron sights, I have to line up the front, put it in the back. And it is difficult, and it takes a lot of training and time. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm saying obviously you should train. You should practice. You should know it upside down, backwards, and forwards. But the fact of the matter is the red dot optics work with the natural human tendency to look at the threat. So what can you do with a red dot optic? You look at the thing that's trying to kill you, punch that steel, that piece of steel and plastic or whatever it happens to be out in front of you, and you're like, wow, there's a monster who wants to kill me, but now there's a monster who wants to kill me with a red dot in the middle of his chest. Rock on, press trigger, rinse, lather, repeat. So that is very good. It also allows you to keep your head up and see what's going on around you.
Did you know that in Season 5, Episode 5, we did a segment on pistol optics?
We did do that because we rock. We're that far ahead of the game.
I'm looking at the press release from it right now. It says, Optics on a Fighting Handgun, Future Fantasy or Practical Reality.
Wow.
This week, we examined 3 separate handguns and consider the pros and cons of adding a mini red dot optic to both a utility and a fighting handgun.
There you go. That's crazy. So the answer is yes. Drawbacks. Holsters, number one. You got to buy a good one. If you buy a cheap Chinese knockoff, chances are the battery is going to be dead. Now you can get an RMR, which doesn't need a battery, or you can get some type of a mini red dot. Now, if you put something like a T1, you're like, a T1 on a pistol? Yeah, you can actually do that. If you do that, then you can just put it on the medium setting and change the battery every 4 years. Also, now drawbacks. The one drawback on glass is environmental. Let's say you're in a nice, cool, air-conditioned cruiser. You're in a nice, cool, air-conditioned police cruiser. And inside your cruiser, it's a comfortable 78 degrees. And you jump out into 95 degrees with 80% humidity. And what happens to your sun or to your glasses? If you're wearing eyeglasses, what happens to them? They fog up immediately, right? What would happen to your optic? Well, you get condensation, and the same thing would happen. That is a reality with glass. Now, does that mean you're not going to be able to use it at all? Not necessarily. What if God hates you and your battery dies? It just does. There are ways to mount, for instance, a large front sight, like a suppressor height front sight, where you can look through that little mini red dot. And even if the mini red dot's not turned on, you can find your front sight. So, as a matter of fact, what you guys don't know is that Jared and I in the background, we've got a couple of pistols coming, and we're going to do some very serious optical shooting with these guns. So, good question. Absolutely, yes. Look for, I would say, here's what I can tell you. Here's what I know. I know that the people at Fort Bragg, the kids down there at Fort Bragg, have been experimenting and testing and playing with duty kind of pistols with optics on them for several years now. So once it'll trickle down from special forces to conventional military to United States law enforcement, and at some point in time you will see police officers as standard duty using red dot optics, and it's going to happen. When? I don't know. Who knows? All right. But let's move on. Thank you to Frog Lube for being a non-petroleum-based firearms lubricant. It's green. It's minty fresh. It just works. It's called Frog Lube, and you put it on your guns or on your sword or whatever you want to put it on. You're an American. Do what you want. Duracoat, why?
Because I said so.
Because I said so, and life's too short to have an ugly gun, so just do it. Crossbreed Holsters, the makers of the Super Tuck Deluxe, the Purse Defender, the Bedside Backup, the Ram Mount, and the Bruce Jenner Commemorative. Let's not forget. Jared, did you see the meme, the Mini Tuck Deluxe meme?
No, I've been off social media.
Oh, yeah, you've been gone.
Days.
It might have happened like right after you left. One of our grad program members, they pulled up a picture of Peter Dinklage, and they made a Mini Tuck Deluxe. A meme. Or is it a May? I don't know.
No.
It's not.
What about Nene?
Nene Meme.
Did you want to watch Nene?
No. Century Arms, the sweetest melon manufacturer, firearms maker in the world. You messed me up. Quit doing that, you buttface.
What?
Quit moving your name around on my freaking show notes. You're distracting me. We're trying to do a radio show here.
We have this super cool technology that my name pops up on his screen so he can see where I'm typing.
It lets me know who's screwing with my show notes.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. The Dallas police murders. The unwarranted attack on...
Before you get
Before
into
I
that,
say that?
Yeah, before you get into that, people that want to watch Season 5, Episode 5 of the Reflex sites, they want to know where they can watch it. But while I was screwing with his show notes, he was paying more attention to my cursor than he was the notes.
Okay, go ahead and tell him.
I took you down.
Tell him what's there.
Okay, yeah. You can watch that, Season 5, Episode 5 of Student Gun TV on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. And we have an official release date for Apple TV. It's going to be 7/15. July 15th, you will be able to watch Student of the Gun on Apple TV.
So congratulations.
And
there you go.
There may or may not be something on there special for you that you can't get on any other app. So.
He's starting to work on it.
Yeah.
All right. Dallas police murders. And a lot of you guys aren't. You may have noticed that when these horrific things happen in our nation or anywhere in the world, that I don't jump right in and address them specifically. And you say, well, Paul, what do you think about the attacks in Turkey, at the airport in Turkey? Do you guys even know that the Hajj killed a bunch of other Hajj in an airport in Turkey? Do you guys know that? You probably don't even know it. Yeah, it's no big deal. Just ISIS backers or whatever. It doesn't matter. The Hajj are killing more Hajj. That's what they do. They're killing each other, and they're killing people in France, and they're killing people in Germany, killing people in England, killing people all over the world. But you don't care, do you? No, and the media doesn't care. They don't care. It's just an isolated incident. Because we're living in an upside-down psycho world right now where we're afraid to offend our enemy. We're afraid to call out and point a finger at the people that want to destroy us. And that is exactly what led up to. And you're like, that has nothing to do with Islam, Paul. Well, we'll find out. About almost a year ago, I wrote an article, and I put it up on the Student of the Gun blog. And basically we talked about the bloody harvest of this is what you get when you have class warfare in the United States of America. This was after, do you remember that a sheriff's deputy named Darren Goforth was assassinated while he was putting gas in his car by an aggrieved victim who said he did it because of, I don't know, Ferguson or Maryland or whatever. He was a victim, and he was seeking retribution, and he decided he was going to kill him a cop. You don't remember that, do you? How many of you remember that? How many of you remember that a sheriff's deputy pulled up to a gas pump, got out to fill his car, and was gunned down in cold blood? How many of you know that? I bet a lot of you don't. How much time did CNN spend on that? How much time did MSNBC spend on that? Did Comrade Barry order the flags half-mast for a week to honor the police officer who was murdered, cold blood there? I don't remember him doing that, Jared. Do you remember that?
Nope.
No. How many of you remember that in December of 2014, a tall, a non-Caucasian man screaming about Aloha Snack Bar walked up to a police car and just emptied his gun, assassinated 2 police officers who were just sitting in their car? And what happened? Well, what happened was the first thing the scumbag piece of human debris mayor of New York did was ran out to make sure that everyone knew that it had nothing to do with Islam. Just because the guy was all dressed up like Durka, just because he was, he was a faithful Muslim missionary, that doesn't, and he was screaming about Aloha Snack Bar, that doesn't mean anything. And we can't hold them responsible. And this is just an isolated incident and blah, 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 blah. You guys remember that? Yeah. I don't know. Do you or do you not? That came hot on the heels of well, remember our boy Excrement who gunned down the overweight black homosexual who was the great aggrieved victim, Jared? Remember our boy Excrement who murdered a news reporter and her cameraman in cold blood because he'd been victimized? You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Well,
that was in.
It was Virginia.
Where that was.
It was in Virginia.
Oh, was that in Virginia?
Yep. All these things all stacked up on top of each other, and so I thought, what the heck? I'll address this because apparently nobody else is addressing it. And you remember in Excrement wrote a long manifesto, and he praised the Virginia tech killer for having the bravery to go and murder all those people. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, for as long as I've been alive, there has been class warfare. And what I mean by class warfare is that we pit different groups of Americans against each other. And this isn't new to America. This has gone on worldwide. But in the United States of America. And why do we do that? How did class warfare become the cool thing to do? Well, it became the cool thing to do because the best way for you to, if you're a politician, the best way for you to get votes is to divide the people up into classifications: the black vote, the gay vote, the women's vote, the this vote, the labor vote, the this vote, the that vote, right? And then what you do is you go to whichever group that you want their votes for, and you do speeches and you tell them how they are victims. They're a victim of. Blacks are victims of whites. Gays are victims of straights, not strays. Women are victim of men. Labor, they're victims of management. Atheists, you're victims of criminal or Christians. Sorry. Old, you're the victims of the young, or the young, you're the victims of the old. You portray them as victims. Now, why do you portray them as victims? Well, because you have to set yourself up as the savior. People who aren't victims don't need saving. But people who are victims, well, they need saving.
You'd think that would disgust the people that are being called victims.
To be talked down to like that?
Yeah. But, what do we know? Maybe they like it. They like to pretend to be.
Well, we know, I'll tell you this, I know something about the human condition, that it is way easier for the human psyche to accept that the shortcomings and the faults and in their lives, it's not their fault. It's not my responsibility. Yeah. I don't have the car that I want. I don't have the job that I want. I don't have the money that I want. I don't have whatever grievance in my life. I wish I had something else or something different. My life isn't how I wanted it to be. Now, there's two ways to go down that road. You can say, well, my life isn't how I want it to be. So what I need to do is I need to work harder, to be educated. I need to be diligent, and I need to actually sweat and earn what I want. That's hard. But if somebody comes along, if a politician, someone in authority, this is always a factor, Jared, an authority figure, and unfortunately in the United States of America, we've devolved to the point where we allow our elected representatives, our employees. Sorry to go for a little bit Farrakhan on you there, Jared. But we allow our employees to set themselves above us as our rulers. They are now the authority figures. The people that we elected to be our duly represented, or our representatives.
Duly represented?
Yeah. We allow them to stand in front of us and speak down to us like we're children. So what do you have, Jared? You have the victim classes. You have these victim classes, whatever they are, and you have authority figures, governmental authority figures, that step out in front of him and tell them, you know, I know your life isn't how you think it should be, but it's not your fault. It's someone else's fault. You're a victim. But if you vote for me, if you support me, if you give me all of your support blindly, unthinkingly, do what I say. It doesn't matter if I actually improve your life. The modern Democrat Party in the United States of America, since Lyndon Johnson, and well, actually going all the way back to FDR, but at very least the Great Society, since Lyndon Johnson. And for those of you who went to public school, that's been about 50 years. Since then, they have looked out at the inner city, at the poor, and they've said, if you support us, we are the party of the people. We are the party of the working man. We are the party of the blue collar. We are the party of the downtrodden. And if you support us, we will fix your life. We'll give you money. We'll give you free housing or super cheap housing. We'll give you no interest car loans. Hell, we'll give you, now in Comrade Barry's era, we'll give you free phones because that's your human right. It is a human right now to have a mobile phone in America. It's a human right to have internet access in America. Just vote for us. And they never wake up and say, you say, Paul, no, some of them have. I have friends who, bro, what did Comrade Barry get? Like 95% of the black, Negro, colored, African-American vote? I don't know what I'm supposed to say because there's so many different things. You're like, oh, hey, hang on, Paul. Hey, you hang on your daggum self there. You hang on your daggum self. Do I need to go down that road? There's a United Negro College Fund. There is a Black History Month. We have the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I guess I shouldn't say anything because if I open my mouth, I'll be a racist. And do you know why we don't fight against? Do you know why we don't shame? Do you know why we don't have these people arrested? What do you mean these people? People that are inciting murder in our culture? We have examples. Jared's going to go ahead and show us. We have people in America that stand in front of their congregations, their pulpits, their masses, their gatherings, and they've called for the murder of their fellow Americans, and yet they're not in jail. And in this class warfare, from the top to the bottom, so you've got Comrade Barry, who's down with it, and the Comrade Barry administration. Ask yourself this. Even if you know people, and let's say you consider yourself a centrist and a moderate, and you don't really think that it was all that bad to have a half-black president. You don't think it's a bad thing. Do you think the United States of America is more united as a people today than they were 8 years ago? Or do you think we are more divided as a nation than we were 8 years ago? Riddle me that, Batman. Body of evidence. You may know a young African-American Negro colored person named Malik Shabazz. Malik Shabazz is the leader of the new Black Panther Party. And in June of 2015, he had this to say. You got that for us, Jared?
Do you want me to play Farrakhan first?
Is that the way you've got it queued?
Yeah.
Okay, Jared says he's got Farrakhan queued first, so we'll do that. In August of 2015, Calypso Louis Farrakhan, a little nod to Rush there, the leader of the Nation of Islam, called on his followers to rise up and kill those who kill us. I don't think that as there was nobody in the audience currently killing them at the time, you can only infer. And he also said that white folks feed the killer hamburgers. I have no idea what that meant. But listen to Calypso Louis talking to his flock.
So if the federal government will not intercede in our affairs, then we must rise up and kill those who kill us. Stop them and kill them and let them feel the pain of death that we'll feel.
Stalk.
Yeah, so there was nobody in that church or that mosque, or I don't know what he calls it. He's the Nation of Islam, and he keeps saying the word God. I don't know how Allah feels about that, the 7th century moon god, if he approves. But yeah, Louis thinks that he wants 10,000 of his members, of his millions, to rise up and kill. Who's he talking about? Kill those who kill us. If the federal government won't intercede. You remember when the Department of Justice said that they were going to launch pattern and practice investigations on pretty much all the police departments in the United States of America? Because what do we know? Well, only the federal government can be trusted. Only the big government in Washington, D.C., those cops can be trusted. Your local guys, the guys who live around you, your neighbors, you know, the parents that your kids go to school with, you know, stuff like that, those guys can't be trusted. Only the central government can be trusted. So Louis calls for the federal government to intercede on behalf of his followers there, or they need to rise up and kill those who kill us. So you got that. Then you had, like I said, a little Malik Shabazz here, and he wants to talk about finishing the mission. Go ahead and listen to what the leader of the New Black Panther Party said in, well, June of 2015, only 1 year ago.
I hear you. We come to help you. Denmark VC had a plan to kill all the slave masters in the state. Denmark VC had a plan to kill every last one of them and kill all of their damn families. And we need some new Denmark VCs today. We got to complete what Denmark didn't finish. He never finished his mission. But the real children of Denmark VC is out here today.
So apparently Malik Shabazz hasn't gotten the memorandum that slavery in the United States of America has been outlawed and illegal for 150 years. But that doesn't stop him. He says he's calling on his followers to finish the mission and kill all the slave masters. Well, and their families, too. So riddle me this, Batman, since the truth of the matter is that there are no slave masters in the United States. The only place in the world, the only countries in the world that have slaves, legitimate actual slaves, are Islamic nations. Yeah. You want to find slavery? Go to the continent of Africa.
The United States does have slave masters. They got them in California.
Oh, yeah.
They got them in New York.
Yeah. Not the kind that, no, he likes those guys. He likes those guys. He likes the people with the D behind their name because they give him free money and stuff. Oh. So who do you suppose that Malik Shabazz, just 1 year ago, when he had his rally and he called on him to finish the mission and kill all the slave masters, who's he talking about there? I don't know. Folks, you want to know why the police officers in Dallas are dead? I'll tell you why. Because for 50 years, we have allowed basically the modern Democrat Party, what I guess, we can call a media. Basically, the media today, they're nothing but really propagandists for the left wing, for the progressive state. Really? I mean, do you believe that they're not? MSNBC, CNN. I'll give you a great example. Okay, you guys know that Officer Darren Wilson, the one who shot Michael Brown when he was beating him, attacking him inside of his police car. Grand jury, the entire case, they reviewed it. They actually reviewed it twice. Didn't file any charges. Remember, did you notice that?
Well, that's because he's white.
Yeah. Did you notice that the charges in the case in Baltimore, the Freddie Gray thing, that case completely fell apart? It was such a political hack job that they didn't get any convictions there either. Did you notice that?
Well, that's also because they're white. Yeah,
exactly. No, they weren't done. They weren't, Jared. Huh? Nice try, though. No, they weren't. So on the 1 year anniversary of the Ferguson riots, what did CNN lead with? They led with the following quote. A reporter from CNN said this: 1 year after white police officer Darren Wilson shot and killed unarmed black teenager Michael Brown. This is after the grand jury inquiry. This is after no charges were filed. And yet, CNN lays with, that's a quote, an exact quote from the story. 1 year after a white police officer, Darren Wilson, shot and killed unarmed black teenager Michael Brown. You don't think that they're in the tank for the class warfare? Ladies and gentlemen, class warfare changed. It morphed from, well, you're being victimized, so you need to give us... What I think has happened, Jared, is it's gotten a little bit off the chain for them, that they're victims, they're angry victims. They want angry victims that will always vote for them. They want angry victims that will blindly follow them right off the cliff. They want that. But they kind of don't want them lashing out like this. But the problem is you can't have it both ways. You cannot breed an entire culture of angry victims and then act surprised when they lash out and start killing. And who started the war on American police officers? None other than Comrade Barry and his minions. But that's okay. That's all right. It's the, Jared, it's the gun's fault. If there weren't guns in the world, that wouldn't have happened. Yep.
Yeah, that gun, if that gun didn't exist,
if that gun didn't, it wouldn't have happened. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I know we went a little bit long today, but I thought you needed to hear that. The entire article, and basically I republished last year's article called Dallas Police Murders. Let me pull it up for you guys so I can tell you exactly what it says. It'll be in the show notes. And you can always go to studentofthegunradio.com and pull up the show notes. Dallas Police Murders, Class Warfare's Bloody Result. There you go. All right, we will be back, and we're going to talk to you tomorrow. Jared's going to tell us all about his little vacay. That's super gay to say vacay, but I just said it. So
it rhymes with gay.
That just happened. All right, kids, remember, you're a beginner once, but you should indeed be a student for life.